Hi guys, my name is John Campbell and welcome to my studio. This is actually in our house. This is a finished basement. The little terrarium you see over there is something I built. That's not natural light coming in. So this entire space is sort of dark unless you light it well. So a lot of my work is kind of derived from Indian miniature painting and mythological painting, medieval times. I think that I'm drawn in by the naivety of the people who created that stuff, and that their struggle to try to make sense of the world, to come up with a cosmology when they really didn't have very much information to go on, that old phrase, "here be dragons." So, they were dealing with plague and bad government and social unrest, depraved morality, greed running all over, and rumors and conspiracies that people didn't know truth from fiction. So imagine that. And that's kind of what draws me into that style of painting, and also this idea of spirituality. That throughout history, the artists are sort of like the shamans, and the idea that the people in power sort of want to exploit them to stay in power. So there's always this relationship between the people who create these images and create the beautiful prose that's in the Bible, and the people who would use that to their own advantage. Voltaire said that history never repeats itself, man always does. And I think that a lot of the work is kind of exploring that to some extent. So, once the pandemic struck, for the first 5 weeks we were at home, and my wife works from home, and we have a 20-month-old named Sufyan. So, I didn't get a whole lot of time to sort of dive into my work like I typically do. I work in either oil or gouache, and oil is a very sort of time-consuming thing to get out and get all the things cleaned up. So it's hard to work in these small incremental chunks. I found it very difficult, so I kind of departed and did some large abstract paintings, sort of back to some stuff that I had done when I first moved out here about 10 years ago. And, it was nice to work in a totally different style for a while. And, I kept up drawing and working on some other things. But, it definitely took a toll. And I definitely, after the first 5 weeks, we went out to Michigan, and we were up there for 5 weeks or so, where I made a treehouse in the woods, and I made some paths back in the woods, but I didn't get a lot of painting done. And now that we're back, we do have our son back in daycare, so I've been able to kind of try to get back into my normal practice, where I have 2 days a week where I can dig back into doing what I'm doing. But in terms of the question of why did you become an artist, I feel like you might as well ask a mollusk, why did you become a mollusk? I sort of feel like I was born with this. Sometimes it almost just felt like a curse to me, like I have no choice. But then, that's the nature side. But in the nurture side, I grew up around artists and creative types. My dad was a cartoonist for Jim Davis. So, I had a lot of creative types around me. Sam Ewing, he was an animator of Jafar. Ralph Eggleston, he's the art director for Ferngully, Toy Story, The Incredibles. Gary Barker, he was an amazing cartoonist. There were so many people there who I think I took for granted, but I was surrounded by those types from an early age. So I think that, I've always known. And there were moments in my life when I wasn't sure. I felt like maybe I was an imposter. I wondered maybe I was surrounded by artists, so maybe if I had been surrounded by doctors, I would have been a doctor. Or who knows? I watched that movie Basquiat, and I saw there's a scene where they play some jazz, and it's just a montage of him working on a gigantic painting, and I think must have been a teenager, and I think that something about that scene really, I think the next day I like got out a big sheet and I put it on the floor and painted this huge sheet on the floor and got about paint on the floor. My mom was pissed off, and but I think that was one of the first times that I was sure that this was who I was. But I still even have moments where I'm not sure. So who knows? Maybe everyone's an artist at times if you commit to it. So thanks to everyone for listening to what I had to say and taking a digital visit to this studio. I really appreciate it, and I hope you get a chance to stop by the gallery and see the real work in person. Have a good day. Stay safe out there.